Hello everybody, welcome back to the James Lawrence Allcott channel. It's over. Yeah, Premier League season, done. Thank goodness. Because I've got to be honest, it's been tough at times. It's been great at times, but it's been a bit draining as well along the way. And fortunately, we've got our fans back. But far more important than that, important than anything, to be honest right now, in my mind and heart, is how I did in my predictions 8 months ago. How did I get on? That's what we're going to find out in this video. Before we get into it, two things. First of all, let's have a like target for this one. 5,000. Just for the vibes and also for the fact that the season is over and we have all survived it. 5,000 likes on the video. Smash that like button. Also, hit subscribe. Reason you might want to hit subscribe and importantly, the notification bell is because I'm going to be doing 2 live shows this week. One after the Europa League final as soon as it hits full time. And then one after the Champions League final this Saturday evening. If you don't want to miss out on those lives, you want to join me and have a chat about those 2 massive games, then please do consider hitting the like button. Now into my predictions. Far more important than that. Far more important is how many did I get right? 5. I got 5 right out of 20. So we're going to dive into it. I'm going to go through the ones I got correct and also a sprinkling of the less good takes. Let's begin with one that I got right. Wolves. Now it's going to get a bit naughty. Okay, so just keep calm. Wolves. 13th. Yeah, I think it's come to a bit of an end in terms of this side. And I think there's a lot of players there that would maybe start to look for the move, be it Jimenez looking for that move or Connor Cody, maybe. I mean, he's probably too loyal. He's too much of a captain for them. But there's a lot of players there that I think could probably maybe be getting a little bit more money or be a bit more excited about the team that they're playing for. And they won't want to hear this. Wolves fans will hate me for saying this, but that's just the problem with the Premier League or any team. You see it with Leicester as well. Players get to a certain level and then they get picked off. And that's what's happening with Wolves here. And I think they're going to really struggle from it. The loss of Doherty is absolutely huge. Be interesting to see if Traore makes his way out of Wolves. And if, when it comes to replacements, if they've got quality replacements in kind. And I don't think they have. And I think they're going to struggle this season. So I got a lot of bits right here, but probably not through the same kind of method and route that we expected. I thought they might get picked off. This video was done before the transfer window was over. And so because of that, I felt like they still might have a couple of these players that got picked off. In turn, it actually, what happened was that Jimenez was the biggest loss. Of course he was. But I do think sort of the idea of it being at the end of the cycle still kind of did ring true a little bit, because with a lot of the kind of reinforcements that were coming in, which is what would have happened if those players had been taken out in that different method through transfers, the players that were coming in probably weren't as good. And also that kind of chemistry that had come from a team that had made their way through the championship and then added that sort of sprinkle of stardust on a few different occasions, it felt like it wasn't there as much. The goal scoring wasn't there as well. They've had real problems with injuries, Wolves. And when you look at it, actually, there's elements here where you got to go, well, they didn't get dragged into too much trouble, and so they should be okay with that. I got a lot of heat for this. Now, I don't want to get it right because of Jimenez having his skull fractured, but I thought there were some elements of it that made it a good take. And in terms of the end product of where they finished, a lot of people were shouting at me for saying that Wolves finished 13th. They finished 13th, didn't they? So less of that, all right? I'm not going to go too big because I know what's still to come. Bottom 3 then, let's run through it then. Fulham. I think they'll just have a little too little quality. That's the thing when it comes to Fulham. They're not going to spend the same amount of money as they did last time. They've got a proven Premier League striker that people can be excited about in Mitrovic. And actually, I think Scotty Parker's come in there and you'll have a much more savvy team. But I think the lack of quality could wear them down as time goes on. Mitrovic, but I just don't see enough creativity. And when I look at the Premier League, they filter down to the bottom. Fulham, I'm quite chuffed with this one. I think this was pretty much spot on, to be honest. There was a lack of creativity, and ultimately, I mean, I guess you had... Was I right with that? Maybe let me know in the comments below, guys, because actually, in fairness, like Vadim Ola Lookman, you know, Ruben Loftus-Cheek was there. I know he was terrible for them. But there were elements, there were sort of... The way they played in the end, they needed to sort of get on a bit of a run to keep the momentum, to keep themselves in it. And they also needed, you know, clubs to not do as well as they did. Burnley finishing 17th with 39 points. You know, that would have been a really high amount of points for any other team to go down. So that would have been a problem regardless in terms of them staying up. They were only very briefly outside the relegation spots throughout the entire season. They never were higher than 17th. They scored 27 goals, which does lead to the fact that past James was kind of right. The fact that 27 goals is just not enough, and that's probably due to a lack of creativity and a lack of ability to finish as well. Can Scott Parker kind of keep that gang together? It's funny, isn't it? Because 28 points is not good enough, right? But the feeling around Fulham is a lot more different than it was the last time they kind of went up and went down. So interesting to see if he can keep those players together, or at least a few of them. I think he's going to struggle because so many of them were on loan, and some of those players that were on loan should be able to get other Premier League clubs. But what I said there at the end was, when you look at all the clubs, they kind of filtered down to the bottom. And at the end of it all, that's exactly what happened. And down to the bottom two, and it's not going to be great for the Midlands this year. Let's just put it that way. In 19th position, let's do West Brom first, and then we'll talk about the other one. I'm going to go with West Brom. I think they're going to struggle to score goals. Dianganga and Pereira, they'll offer a certain amount, but going in the opposite direction when you're not dominating games like you have done in the Championship, I think that's going to be difficult for them. And Charlie Austin, is he a Premier League striker anymore? I don't think he really's got the physicality for Championship.
It.
It's quality in the Championship.
I'd
say the exact same thing. I also see Slaven Bilic as a manager who is disposable and will be one of those managers who ends up inevitably getting the sack in November or December when it's not going well in time for the January window where they give it a go. Thank you, right? Thank you, previous James, okay? And thank you lot, for watching this right now, because I tell you what, I got pelters for that as well. Bilic is a god. Bilic isn't going to get the sacked. Yeah, well, I haven't got a good comeback right now, but the point is that I got that right. Okay, first it finished 19th. And did I say Bilic would go? Yeah, yes, that's the point I'm trying to make now. So, when it gets to August and we do this again, just to pipe it down a little bit of respect, please. Okay, next one. I think Aston Villa are going to fall like a bit of a stone this time. The big problem with Aston Villa, and this is why these predictions are difficult, because they need goals. They know they need goals. They're too reliant on Grealish. And for Grealish to have the stomach to go again and be that guy again is going to be very difficult for him. It's something that I'm sure he'll take on, but there has to be more goals from further up the pitch. Samatta, Vesley, just not good enough. No goals at all from Aston Villa. And will that change? I don't see it changing at the moment. The signings haven't come in to suggest that that's going to happen as well. And a big club like Aston Villa, the pressure will be on them. Now, okay, look, fair enough. I got it wrong. 20th was wrong. But I actually stand by a lot of the stuff that I said there. And I think you saw that without Grealish, they weren't as good a side and they needed to recruit. As I said, this was done before the transfer window ended. This is before Grealish had signed a new contract. This is before Ollie Watkins had signed for the club. Ross Barkley, who I know wasn't always great, but was part of a team that was so much better than this team that I put forward. And I think it rings true a little bit that Aston Villa fans, you should be really happy with how the club has gone about their business over the last season. Because if you hadn't have bought those players, if Samatta and Vesley were the options for you in terms of strikers, you would have been in massive trouble. And the weight of being a big club, I think, would have affected the defence. You would have been defending more. Grealish would have been all on his own as he had done before. So, yes, I'm totally wrong on this one. And in terms of 20th position, it was Sheffield United, of course, who finished there. I said Sheffield United. This is where I did get it horribly wrong. I thought... Let's show you the clip first, and then I'll reveal my thoughts on Sheffield. Sheffield United. Sheffield United are going to finish 10th. No one's putting them 20th this year. No one is putting them 20th this year. It said. No one. Apart from real life. Apart from the big guy. It's God, or whoever your God may be. Not really up to me. I'm waffling. Sheffield United finished 20th. What an absolute mess it was in the end. And I think what it highlights is that there are these patterns. There really are these patterns in terms of teams that go up. And actually, the fact that you got Sheffield United, Fulham and West Brom as the bottom three, and if you think how far away they are from the next best placed team, yes, of course, Leeds were a lot further up, and that's a great exception to the rule, but they're playing a unique brand of football and have been able to invest a lot more than some of these other clubs. And I think that is one thing to note, is that, yes, as well as Sheffield United did, it's interesting that it wasn't enough. It was one of those kind of Huddersfield vibes where they had that great season, they had the adrenaline, but to be able to go again is just so difficult. Maybe that's something that Leeds will have to deal with as teams look to combat their style of play. I do think it's a little bit different. But for Sheffield United and Sheffield United fans, let me know how you feel about this, because, I mean, just a real disaster and so heartbreaking when you feel like you've almost got over the hump of being a Premier League team, and to finish ninth and then the next season to only score 20 goals. David McGoldrick, I think, scored 8 of those goals. Just it's very clear what the problem was. Losing 18 games. They didn't lose that many games by that many. There was a few bad results, of course, 5-0, I think, to Leicester. I remember that one. But overall, it was kind of just a stodgy team that couldn't go and score goals. And if you're going to play one way, it needs to be kind of unstoppable, regardless of it being about tactics and formation, like Burnley and their percentage football at times, and like possibly Leeds moving forward. But I got it massively wrong. I thought they would continue on that vein, and maybe that was just kind of optimistic hope more than any kind of real basis for it, because in hindsight, it looks like a terrible take. But not my only terrible take. Don't worry, we've got a few more of those. And the next one is 15th place. Who did I say was going to finish in 15th place? Declan Rice is so integral to West Ham in terms of the energy that he brings, the quality that he brings, and the work that he does. Both getting the ball, but then delivering it to others. He's crucial. And without him, they are in massive trouble. Antonio caught fire at the back end of the last season. He might be able to keep that going. Haller, we were waiting for a little bit more from him. And Jarrod Bowen, I think, is a very good piece of business. But that squad is still littered with a lot of players that are probably not as good as they think they are. David Moyes is a good manager, and I think, like I said, if Declan Rice is there, they'll be solid. They'll be a little bit boring, but they'll get through it, and they'll be absolutely fine. But if they lose him, I change that. And I actually think if they lose Declan Rice, I think they go down. So I said if they lost Declan Rice, they would go down. They didn't lose Declan Rice, and thus they didn't go down. I am the Nostradamus of football predictions. 15th was where I was expecting them. I thought they would really struggle, and I think this has to go down to David Moyes. And I think what we'll really, truly understand about just how good West Ham are at the end of next season, because every season there is a team that kind of gets in a good groove, starts to kind of move forward, a couple of the right buys, and they go on a great run. There's a real feel-good feeling, obviously, in the squad, and they go and do something pretty special. You've seen it with Burnley, you've seen it with Wolves, you've seen it with Sheffield United over the years. So can they go again next season? Again, I think it will come down to the exact same point I made 8 months ago. If they can keep Declan Rice, I think they've got a chance, because they do look a very different team without him in there. And in that team, he is able to be everything that he wants to be, both in winning the ball, but then going on those runs. You saw that in his goal in the final game of the season. Lingard, genius management in terms of bringing him in. Can they keep him in? And will they be able to sign him? There's been a few hints from Lingard that that's not going to happen. But I still think there's actually a lot more to come from the likes of Jarrod Bowen and Ben Rama as well. I think Ben Rama can do far better than he has done this season. Fornals has got better this season. I think he's a lot more settled in the squad now as well. And I think you know what you're going to get with Souček. He's still going to be really useful in a David Moyes team, just like Fellaini was back in the day. So amazing for West Ham fans. And it's one of those where I think the smart thing to do is to really enjoy this. But with Europa League football next season, yes, you would look to strengthen and hope to strengthen. But I think you just got to be kind of careful. Allow these players to continue to grow and also feel important. The likes of Antonio's got a good few years left as well. So kind of just don't upset the apple cart here. And I think they'll have another good season. It could be a bit like Wolves, where yeah, maybe it's not 6th, maybe it's 9th, maybe it's 11th, but it's still one where, you know, you get some good results and you have a nice European adventure along the way. Fantastic season for West Ham this year. I'm just gutted they weren't able to make it into the Champions League spots, because that really, really could have taken them into a new orbit, really. To be able to bring that kind of money in would have been absolutely huge. Let's start off with 9th position, and the team that I think will maybe not even surprise people that much, but you'll see quite a jump and quite a good feeling about them when it comes to the media, because I think they're going to play really exciting football. I can see them going on a strong run, and in terms of the evolution of their squad, I see a lot of the players there getting to sort of the peak years of their time as footballers, and I think they're going to want to do something. So I think they've bought in completely into Hasenhüttl and how he wants to play. I think you saw that at the back end of last season. They were right up there in the form table over the last 8 games of the season, did really, really well. And it's Southampton, and I think they're going to do great this season. I was hoping for so much more from Southampton. I think sometimes you can almost like catapult yourself into a good season when the season before finishes on a high. The worry for Southampton now will be after, you know, me putting them in 9th. I think a lot of people that made their predictions thought that they could be getting a top 10 finish. They've now gone to 4 successive seasons without a top 10 finish. And to finish 15th, yes, there's a never-ending injury crisis, but that could happen again. You know, those problems could rear their ugly head again. And I feel like Hasenhüttl needs to evolve a little bit as a coach. And I know he wants to be on the front foot and he wants to kind of play with this high pressing style, but maybe he just needs a season where he gets away with it with the injuries. But what's going to be worrying is the likes of Minamino is going to be leaving, the likes of Danny Ings could well be leaving, and a squad which a season ago looked really, really good, you know, is now quite possibly going to be kind of decimated. And I think when we make our predictions in August, unless there's a very, very strong transfer window for Southampton, they're actually now going to be one of the favourites to go down, because there's only so much credit you can have in the bank for Hasenhüttl, as much as people appreciate him as a coach. And Southampton are an ambitious club. They want to move forward. And if they don't do that and don't start well, next season could be a real, real struggle for them, because they might not have the star quality that they've had in this season. And in this season, they've been one of the worst teams. They were in the top 4 in December of this year. Like, I think only Fulham have not won have won less games than them in 2021. Worrying times for Southampton, and I'm a bit disappointed that they weren't able to kick on. I'm sure Southampton fans feel the same. I think Arsenal will finish 6th. I think this season, not boring, but I don't think there'll be too many casualties in terms of managers. Of course, there'll be a few, there always are. But I see Arteta and the Arsenal squad growing, getting better, but I still feel like that Spurs squad is just a touch better. Just a touch. They're a good team. You can be excited about them. But are they going to challenge for top 4? Absolutely not. Are they going to get a bit weary from the Europa League? Absolutely. They're a good team. You can be excited about them. Arteta's going in the right direction. Maybe he's just taking the long road. You know, it's like a very incremental. Arsenal and Spurs. I said Spurs would just pip Arsenal. They did just pip Arsenal. Not a good season for either of them. I also said in the Spurs video, that Spurs part of it, that if Kane and Son do well, then Spurs will do well. I mean, they did for a bit, but also they as soon as it calmed down a little bit, I mean, they've really, really struggled. But for Arsenal, I got that horribly wrong. And this is what's great about reacting to your predictions, is that I think I'm quite a level-headed person, you know, when it comes to Arsenal, because I'm neutral on this one. So Arsenal fans will naturally probably be a bit more optimistic than that, or at the very least as optimistic as me. So Arsenal fans, let me know how you feel, because I think I will know what you're feeling, to be honest, because I really expected them to kick on and at least kind of utilise the sort of young hope that was kind of within the squad. I thought you felt like he was going in the right direction and you knew how they were going to play. I think what happened was that it kind of got too obvious how they were going to play, and he didn't have a plan B or C. So that's what Arsenal need to do moving forward. I still think they need to completely reset, and it's going to be interesting to see who they're able to bring in, on loan, because I think that might have to be the method again, because they're going to struggle to sign players who, you know, want to play in European competitions. They're going to have to rely on their clout and possibly the idea that you can put forward the project of not having to play every single midweek or on every Thursday, importantly. Being able to just literally have the week off, and for Arteta to get his hands around that squad tactically, to get them playing in the way that he wants to, but also in a way that offers up the output that he wants. That's going to be massive moving forward. But, you know, I put them down as 6th, and I thought that was kind of fair and reasonable. So for them to finish 9th and not in any kind of European football next season, first time in 25 years, is, you know, it's pretty terrible. So I definitely got a lot wrong, but I got a few right as well, because these final two are really interesting. First of all, I said that Man City would win the league. For Man City, I think they're so dominant in terms of their possession, and they'll have the bit between their teeth as well. They want to kind of get their trophy back. I think that they will continue to destroy teams, but defensively, most importantly, they will be a lot better and concede a lot fewer. You're allowed to put Rodri back in that midfield. You're allowed to put Fernandinho back in that midfield. Mahrez is still such a threat. Foden's going to get better and might even offer more goals than someone like Silva, as good as Silva has been. I don't think this is one of those historic seasons, but I think they'll get the job done. But I also think it'll be the end of that team when that happens. I think it'll be the end of Aguero, could be the end of Jesus, could be the end of a few players. I thought they would go again. They made the right signings, and a couple of bits that I said were kind of poignant, I guess. They kind of did ring true. The idea that in February, March, it was a bit too much for Liverpool. That's when they completely fell off, as did a few of the other teams. Man United sort of gently fell off, I guess. But Man City just pulled away. The quality that they had was enough in a season that I think we knew was going to be sort of dogged and sluggish. And so for this kind of pure possession football to take hold was not that much of a surprise. What's going to be interesting is when the fans come back, how much of an impact that will have. I think we saw it in the last few games that the emotions just went through the roof. So it'd be interesting to see when we go into next season what that does for Liverpool and what that does for Man City, because Liverpool were the other prediction and my final prediction. So 5 predictions in total that I got correct. And listen to this, because there are some interesting points here that highlights that, yes, it can go one way, but of course it can go another way. And this was something that was always under threat when it came to Liverpool. 3rd place. You're not going to like this. You're not going to like this. I'm going to go Liverpool. The reason I'm going for Liverpool is to not be boring, slightly, but because of, I guess, the psychological strain of being, and I said this last season and I got it horribly wrong, but the strain of those key first team players and the pressure that's been on them and the ability to keep dominating and getting as many points as they have. For them to finish 3rd, there needs to be a massive drop-off. But they also actually just need to get unlucky with a couple of injuries with the top players at the far end of the pitch. And of course, I don't wish anything like that on any players, but it does happen. Players do get injured. And if 2 of those guys are unavailable for a period of time, the depth, as most Liverpool fans I think will agree with, is not completely there. I don't think the points will be as high as they've been in previous seasons. I think the defences of the teams in the mid-table areas are so much better than they have been in previous seasons. And so because of that, I think there'll be a lot more draws. There'll be fewer goals, I think, as well at times. And I think it'll be harder to get the same amount of points as we've seen in previous seasons. I'm basing that on a gut feeling more so than anything else. But I think that's what's going to happen. And if that does happen, then Liverpool might be one of the sides that struggles to break teams down a little bit when you're concentrating on retaining your title instead of going on and winning it for the very first time. Teams might be able to figure them out just a little bit more. These are all guesses that I'm sure are really annoying you right now, but it's how I feel. So the focus there was on injuries and the depth of the Liverpool squad. I think that was always something that I think Liverpool fans have been waiting for. You know, it was going to happen at some point. They were going to lose someone. I thought it might be the front three that might suffer from this, and you might have a few injuries there. They did suffer, I think. Obviously, Salah scored the goals that he wanted to, but Mane was more of a kind of, he was drained, wasn't he? He just felt so tired by the end of it. And that's for someone who, you know, you felt like was a bit of an energizer bunny. Like he literally just didn't get tired. But I think the injuries elsewhere led to that. And overall, as great as this Liverpool squad is, when you're comparing these squads to the Man City squad, they're always going to lack a little bit of depth. And so if they do drop off a little bit due to injuries, then so be it. The other part of it, which I thought was interesting as well, is, and I think that is something that really I feel like I've learnt this year, is that you've got to keep an eye on just how fast moving football is and how much information there is on these teams as well. And when that happens, you can catch fire for a season. But after that, you really will get found out a little bit, and you need to find maybe different ways, be them very cute or wholesale changes, to continue to go and win games. And for Liverpool, against those lesser sides, it did feel very predictable a few months ago. They were struggling to score goals. You know, all the draws and the defeats to the likes of West Brom and Burnley and so many others. That's what's cost Liverpool, and it was something that I guess we thought might happen in the summer. It was always something that was plausible, and I think that's a learning, I guess, for every football fan, that both ways, right? You can do a lot better than you would expect, but no one is bulletproof. Liverpool, for all they've gone through, and for all this idea that they're bad champions, I myself have kind of gone, it's obviously not been a good title defence. But last season, Liverpool finished so many points ahead of Man City. So the ebb and flow psychologically of these teams, and then you add in the different ingredients or plot twists in terms of injuries and bits and pieces like that. I think it just shows that anything can happen in any season. Unfortunately, the top teams often do rise to the top because they have got more money, but things can happen, as we've seen this season. It's been interesting to go through my predictions. Look, some of them I got right, a lot of them I got wrong. And Aston Villa fans, if you are still feeling a bit annoyed at me putting you 20th, I apologise, guys. Okay, I got it wrong. And for those of you who said that you're going to finish mid-table, you were more optimistic than me, but you were correct. So there you have it. That's me reacting to my predictions. Of course, we will go again next season, and we will be going in a big, big way into the Euros. We've got some fantastic Euro previews coming up. And if you like me shouting at a camera, that is definitely going to be happening with some of these England games and Scotland games on the horizon. It's going to be really good. So make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell and the like button as well. Let's hit 5K on this one. It would be wonderful if we could. And I'll see you next time.